Today we're diving into something we all do but almost never think about, the history of sleep. We just assume it's always been about getting 8 solid, uninterrupted hours, right? Well, what if I told you that whole idea is incredibly new? For pretty much all of human history, our ancestors experienced the night in a way that would feel totally bizarre to us today. Oh, you know that feeling. Your eyes just snap open. It's dead quiet, it's the middle of the night, and your brain just kicks into overdrive. You glance at the clock, you start doing the math. Okay, if I fall asleep right now, I can get 3 more hours. And the panic sets in that you're going to be a total zombie tomorrow. It's such a classic modern-day anxiety. But here's the wild part. That middle-of-the-night wake-up call, it doesn't mean your sleep is broken. Not at all. It's actually a kind of echo, a deep memory in your biology from a time long before electricity and alarm clocks completely changed how we live. Okay, so let's just tear down the biggest myth from the get-go. This idea that we're supposed to have one single 8-hour chunk of sleep, that's not some ancient biological rule, it's a modern invention. For literally thousands of years, people slept in a completely different way. See, the historical standard was something called segmented sleep, or sometimes biphasic sleep. This was just the default setting for humanity for centuries upon centuries. It was this totally natural rhythm of sleeping in 2 separate chunks, with a quiet, calm period of being awake right in the middle. And it was surprisingly organized. People would have their first sleep, which would start around dusk and go till about midnight. Then they'd wake up for an hour or two for this period they called the watch. And after that, they'd drift off again for their second sleep, which would take them all the way to dawn. I love this quote because it just totally flips that 2 a.m. panic on its head. Waking up wasn't a failure. It was a scheduled part of the night. It's not insomnia. It's your body just remembering this ancient, natural rhythm. And this time awake, the watch, it wasn't wasted time, not by a long shot. It was this peaceful, productive part of the night. People would pray, maybe read by candlelight, check on the fire. Some physicians back then even said it was the best time for intimacy, when you were well-rested and calm. Now, to really get a feel for this, we have to understand what their nights were actually like. And that starts with the place they slept, which was, believe me, nothing like our cozy bedrooms today. I mean, just look at the difference. We're all about our memory foam and our high thread count sheets. Back in Roman or medieval times, a bed was literally a sack filled with straw on the floor. We have climate control, they had drafts, dampness, and constant noise. And personal space? Forget about it. That wasn't a thing. You slept with your whole family, and often enough, strangers and animals too. This quote just nails the grim reality, doesn't it? A straw mattress wasn't just uncomfortable. It was basically a 5-star hotel for bugs and mice. It was this constant, itchy, scratchy reality. Yeah, privacy was just not a concept. In a peasant's home, you'd bring the animals inside at night to keep them warm and safe, so sleeping next to the family pig was totally normal. If you were at an inn, you paid for a spot in a bed, not the whole thing. And pests, well, pests were a given for pretty much everyone. But the discomfort wasn't just physical. As the sun went down, a whole different kind of anxiety started to creep in. The darkness brought fears that were very, very real, and some that were maybe even worse because they were imagined. So first, you had the physical threats, which were relentless. We're talking fleas, lice, bedbugs. These weren't an infestation. They were just a part of life. Mice were everywhere. And if you lived in a Roman apartment building, one of those insules, the very real fear that the whole poorly built thing could collapse or catch fire was with you every single night. But honestly, as terrible as all that sounds, the physical dangers were almost the easy part. The real terror of the night, the thing that kept people up, came from the threats you couldn't see. The spiritual dangers people truly believed were lurking in the shadows. See, the night was a deeply spiritual and frankly spooky time. For the Romans, sleep was literally the twin of death. Dreams weren't just dreams. They could be warnings from the gods or messages from the dead. And for medieval people, the fears were even more personal. They believed your soul was vulnerable when you slept, that it was open to demonic temptation or even possession. This line, we all know it. We think of it as this sweet, innocent children's prayer. It was born from that very real, very adult medieval fear. It wasn't just a comforting rhyme. It was a serious, nightly contract with God, acknowledging that you might not wake up, and you had to be spiritually ready for that. So you have this world, a world of 2 sleeps, of physical discomfort, of deep spiritual paranoia. This was the norm for thousands of years. So what happened? How did it all just vanish? Why did we trade this natural rhythm for the rigid 8-hour block we're all chasing today? Well, the change came hard and fast, driven by two huge forces. First, the Industrial Revolution came along with its factory whistles and rigid timetables, which completely ignored natural human rhythms. And then, artificial lighting basically conquered the night. Gas lamps, then electric lights, let us push our days later and later, squeezing our sleep into a smaller and smaller window. By the early 20th century, uninterrupted sleep wasn't just a habit, it was a sign of being efficient and productive. And that was the huge cultural shift. Suddenly, that quiet period of the watch wasn't part of the schedule anymore. It was a waste of valuable time. Sleep became just another task to check off the list, something to be done as efficiently as possible. Any interruption, any waking moment was seen as a failure, a sign of unproductivity. And just like that, in only a few generations, we completely forgot this ancient way of being. We started to pathologize waking up at night. We gave it a medical name, insomnia, and created a whole industry to fix a problem that our great-great-grandparents wouldn't have even recognized as a problem in the first place. Which brings us right back to you, lying there awake at 2 in the morning. The next time that happens, maybe try to remember this. That moment of quiet wakefulness, it isn't a flaw in your system. It's an echo from a much older, more natural way of life that our bodies, deep down, haven't quite forgotten. Here we are in 2025. We've got smartphones and AI and dreams of Mars, but our biology? It's still wired for a world that was lit by fire and governed by the rising and setting of the sun. Those ancient rhythms are still in there. So it kind of leaves us with this big question, doesn't it? What does a perfect night's sleep really look like? Is it about forcing ourselves into this rigid industrial era schedule? Or could it be about learning to embrace the quiet, still moments of the watch, whenever our ancient bodies decide it's time for it to begin?